G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Night Lords. And once more, we're obviously doing the Legion reviews. So, let's kick it off with the original Night Lords helmets. And I have to say, these are some of my favourite helmets in 30k. I especially love this one that's down near the bottom right. Just something about it, I use it in nearly every army. I think it's the sort of best chaplain's head. Something that a lot of newer models lack is they lack the defined teeth. When they do it, they're often very buck-toothed, or they look like horses' teeth, or the teeth just come straight out of the upper mandible, which is bizarre because they should have a root of some kind and go into the jaw. Yeah, these ones have that. On top of that, many of them have this sort of upturned nose, which is very much like a bat's nose, which I think is a bit of a wink and a nod to the Legion in general. A bit of a Nosferatu vampire thing going on as well. I love it. There's also these lower ones, which almost look like it might be an actual human skull that's been broken apart and attached to their helmet, as opposed to just being stylized. In fact, many of these look like they're actual pieces of bone. And I just think it looks great. There's a bit of variety in here. I think there is actually 4 different sculpts of bones in here. You've got these guys in the middle who have this sort of batsy look minus the nose. These guys up the top who have the nose. These ones to the side who have the sort of jawbone goes around. The guys at the bottom with the full face skull, and of course the awesome one there. So yeah, absolutely love this helmet set, and I think everyone should, if you can, just get a set of this because you'll use the helmet somewhere in time. Then we have the beaky heads, which I don't know. Are they true beakies? Are they not? It's the same head. Almost over and over. Just these two are the same one, just repeated, with such minor differences you can't even really tell. You can't notice them. It's just like many of the Mark 6 helmets, very underwhelming, like very minimum effort sculpting went into them. It feels like comparatively, it doesn't feel like a set of unique helmets. This last set, this felt like a unique set of helmets. This doesn't feel unique at all. It just feels like a copy pasta. Even the Sergeant's helmet doesn't really do anything for me. The bear head doesn't even do anything for me. So, yeah, personally, I think this one's a miss. And it comes down to things like not having those same sorts of teeth, not quite pulling off that bat's nose. It's just something about them looks off. I can't quite put my finger on it. Anyway, on from there, Nostrum Chain Glaives. We actually have a Legion weapon, which is great. Nostrum Chain Glaives aren't the worst in the rules. These are obviously designed to go with Mark 4 power armor, and they fit a very particular way into the arms. And of course, the Mark 6 power armor that's everywhere now, and the upcoming Mark 3 will not fit these without some chopping, changing, converting. So a bit of a lack of foresight there, but where you can use the existing arms that come in this kit and you can make it work. So good enough, I guess. They do the job. I've never been a huge fan of these as designed. I think I prefer the style that Sevatar has, which we'll get to later. I think his chain glaive looks a lot better than these ones with their just sort of long, consistent curve. I'm not a huge fan of. I think I prefer more of a straighter blade. These have a sort of pseudo-Naginata look, which I think suits the White Scars better, but I don't know. I just can't quite put my finger on what doesn't quite work about them. Then we get into the Contemptor, and they actually had a gorgeous Contemptor, the Night Lords. The heads on this torso, you can actually glue them on in different positions, so you're not having to use them all, or in those particular areas, but that is how it's designed. The full dreadnought worked a lot better than just the torso, because now you have this elaborate torso with, all these trophies hanging off it, and meat hooks and stuff, and then with the plastic upgrade, you're sort of left with a very blank dreadnought around that. Night Lords need stuff hanging off them. They are the proto-Chaos Space Marines. They set the template for a lot of what we see that comes later. They should have chainmail and random spikes, and they're trying to instill fear in their enemies, and the dreadnoughts are a great palette for achieving that. So the new dreadnoughts lack that, I think, to some extent. And this one is one of the ones that's really suffered for it. It was otherwise a pretty nice upper mid-range dreadnought. From there, we get to the Leviathan, and then you can see this very principle in action, because this Leviathan actually still has appropriate Legion shoulders and, of course, legs that suit it. Now, you can imagine how it would look having this torso with the spikes running along the torso, and the chains dangling off it, that optional Space Marine torso as well that's there. And if it had all of that, and yet somehow the legs were completely barren, it wouldn't look right, would it? And here they've got the little parchment pieces on the legs to just to add a little something, some chains here and there. And I think it's a pretty nice dreadnought. I have issues with it, mostly just down to the Marine himself. Marines, as we all know, have a fused rib cage. A big one-piece fused bone rib cage. So why does this one have multiple ribs? It's because the people who sculpt these don't necessarily remember that bit of lore, or they say to themselves, hey, that's what it's supposed to look like. But it's those little details that stick out to me, and I go, that's not right. And yeah, the skin tone could be painted a little bit differently. It just looks weird in that colour. But that's not anything to do with the model, that's just the colour of its skin. On from there, the Night Raptors, and I really, really like the Night Raptors. They are gorgeous sculpts. I'm a bit mixed on the skin gloves, because I think, where the hell did they find a glove, even from a dead Space Marine, that's big enough to fit over their entire arm, power armor and all? Well, that's a lot of flesh, and those are arms. They're not pieces of leather or something, or flayed skin that's been stitched into the pattern of an arm. Those are someone's arms. Yeah, not sure where they got the skin from, but it works for me regardless. I love the randomized bits of bone hanging off their armor, the strips of flesh, all of that. The only thing I dislike about this kit is the kit itself doesn't come with a great variety of weapons. It's pretty much what you see right now on the screen. And it really needed other weapons in there, all of the weapons options. In fact, it's a pet peeve in general of mine that we have many units that are sold to us which have interesting or unique items of war gear, and they're trying to convince you to use this war gear, and they don't give you any means of actually taking it. I don't want a guy with one power axe in the squad. You probably want to run this squad with, all Nostraman chainglaves or something like that, or all lightning cores. Convert these into a sick command squad, whatever it might be. And that's not the easiest thing in the world as supplied. And I really wish they actually gave us more bits, more parts in these kits that we could utilise elsewhere. And I guess that's probably why they don't, because they don't want us to utilise those parts elsewhere. They want us to buy another kit, which is a shame. I do absolutely adore the helmets as well on these. You've got to remember, when these came out in Book 2, this is the first Nightward sculpts we've gotten since 3.5 Chaos, and 3.5 Chaos gave us these giant bat's ears just coming out of a Marine's helmet. Having these much more stylized, reduced wings on the heads, it really looked good in comparison. So there might be a bit of nostalgia from that for me, but overall I think these are some of the best Nightward sculpts that they've ever made over at Games Workshop / Forge World. Next up, we have the Contemptor, and it'll surprise no one that I'm not the biggest fan of these, not just for the background reasons, the lore of the Night Lords as a legion, but the weapons make no sense to me. I'm fine with the chain rakes or whatever they're called. I forget the name of the big chainsword thing that they've got. The Volkite weapon and the Flamer doesn't make sense to me as a weapon. I imagine the Night Lords would have something closer to like a Needler weapon, like a Dark Eldar Needler, something like that. That's what I picture when I think of the Night Lords. Some sort of like poison barbed weapon, That would have been a really fun inclusion on the squad, but giving them these flamer weapons and these Volkite weapons doesn't quite look right to me. Especially the Volkites. It seems like it should be something like the Salamanders or the Iron Hands would take. I don't associate it with Night Lords, and that's just not to say they can't have it. It's just not what my first pick would have been. And then we have a design detail on all of these Marines, which I just hate. It doesn't work for me in any way. And that's the weird sort of shark gills blades that are embedded in each leg. For some reason, you see it here, there's these blades on the side of each leg, and they're not hard to remove from the models, but why do they have them in the first place? It's a strange choice. Very strange sculpting choice. Then we get into things like the helmets. So we've seen good heads on previous Night Lords models. These heads don't look right. They look more like Primaris Reavers in the skull faces and such. It doesn't look anywhere near as good, as mean. I know it's strange to describe, but these faces look mean. The eyes look very angular, very aggressive. The upturned nose on the bits of bone, the very angular bits of bone and the cheeks, okay? And then coming into these guys, they're very, very soft. You know, they look like a caricature of angry evil skulls. They don't look like angry evil skulls, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's those little details. I think with a head swap, getting rid of the blades off the legs, and a different weapon, this unit would go from being probably, I think there are 4, personally. They would go up to probably a 7.5, 8 out of 10 immediately, just between head swap, weapon swap, and getting rid of those silly blades on the legs. Like, it is that close to being a really nice looking unit, and I think it is let down specifically by those few things. Oh, and one other pet peeve of mine, which you'll hear a lot of pet peeves over these videos. I hate it when we get Terminator units where they have melee weapons in the right hand and weapons in the left for ranged combat. Because now they don't convert very well with existing bits for regular Terminators. Regular Terminators, they have the melee weapon in the left hand, the ranged weapon in the right hand. You're messing things up when you keep having these constant arm flip-flops, because I can't easily now convert just hands onto these models. I have to start replacing whole arms on these models, and that can get very frustrating, especially if I want to keep, say I want to keep the sword on this model, and I want to change his ranged weapon to a combi bolter. I can't. I need to now change weapons around, start cutting and hacking things apart and pinning things and all of that. And whilst I enjoy that, I don't just look at this hobby from the perspective of a seasoned modeler. I look at this from the perspective of someone who's getting into the hobby. You know, maybe they only got 2 or 3 years under their belt. They're deciding into Horus Heresy, and then they're faced with that challenge. And I think that's a very frustrating challenge that many of us have faced. There was no need to swap the hands on these models. So why did they do it? It just becomes a bit of a frustrating thing. Oh, and lastly, and less importantly, because this is from the tactical rock era of Forge World, where every model in every unit has a foot up on something, well, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And 3 of these guys have their feet up on rocks, but this guy on the left has his foot on a Marine or someone's torso? Now, I'm no scientist, but I imagine that a fleshy lump of skin with all of its bones broken and exposed probably isn't going to cope very well with the weight of a 1 ton plus Terminator. I think a Marine's about a ton. A ton plus of Terminator armor pressing down on it is probably going to just squash straight through that flesh. So I don't know, it's the little things like that, that attention to detail that I don't like. Like that flesh should be squashed and bulging out of the way of the foot, you know, or put a rock there. Either way, minor problems. Alright, then we get on to the Terminator in Tartaros armor, and I really like the model. I do. I have one big qualm with it, maybe 2. The minor qualm first, the minor issue, is the little Batsy symbol on the chest and shoulder. it's not their best sculpting work, especially compared to other models in the Legion. But the big problem, the elephant in the room, I think you all know what it's going to be. It's the, well, I mean, look at it. What the hell is that weapon? It is ludicrous, it's impractical, and not in the fun way. Okay, this is semi-serious 30k, where a lot less random, Mad Donna, it was in Rogue Trader, therefore it's canon sort of stuff happens. This is the more, what if this was a real history sort of setting, and this weapon is pants off head stupid. I don't like it. Is it easy to replace? Sure, but you could almost put any other weapon in place of this thing. That's how bad it is. And, I'm not going to harp on the point. It's big, it's chunky, it has this tiny little saw blade, and I don't think it would hit anything with it. And even trying to, this weapon looks like it would hook the user more easily. In fact, it looks like the back end, the spike, is probably a more usable weapon than this end up here, because there's this whole big fat motor on it that's just going to protect people from being struck by it. No, it's bad. Weapon's bad, model's nice. Even, I think the bare head on it's not too bad either. So, and I like the trophy rack as well. This horizontal trophy rack, instead of the running down each side of the Terminator like on previous customers, it looks great. Yeah, no, I like the Terminator here a lot. Then we get to this one. Well, same problem with the face. It's very rounded off. Has these buck teeth. Looks like, a 1940s caricature of the Japanese army. Oh, I can't say that. Politically incorrect. I don't care. That's what it looks like. And it looks horrible. So does the skull on the chest. Those things are bad enough. The chain blade on it, though, I like that. That's good. Then we get, again, these are the little things that stick out to me. What's this? Right there, inside the chainmail on each side. It's just blank space where the hook should be. Why aren't there rings of chainmail? Oh, we didn't sculpt it in, we forgot to sculpt it, we covered it up with another detail later and didn't go back. Whatever the reason might be, it's not there. I've noticed it. Makes me dislike it. At least in this instance, we've got a Legion Praetor who has a jump pack and can actually, move around with like the Night Raptors and stuff, which is nice to see. And I wish they did that with other legions like the Blood Angels when we get to them. But, yeah. How does one get past that giant silver ball, flat, is a ball, just flat material on either side of those hooks? You know that they had an asset and they've literally just flipped the same asset digitally in a computer and then just slapped it back on that chainmail. It shows. It really shows that that's what they've done. So, yeah. But apart from that, the rest of the model's actually pretty nice. Yeah, okay, the Night Lord's symbols on the chest, on the shoulder, none of those are too great. I don't mind the head. The paint job's a bit weird. This sort of weird grin on it. Yeah, I don't know. The flesh could be a bit better. That's nailed to the armor. It's far from the best. And again, like with the Emperor's Children, who we've looked at previously, when this is the established standard, okay, and this is what people are expecting, and we go, well, geez, there's 9 years between these sculpts and this sculpt. We don't expect to take a step backwards. We expect to be on par or better. And, well, it's not, frankly. And the Emperor's Children suffer from the same problem. All the newer stuff is nowhere near as nice as the old stuff. It's a downgrade, and people notice that. Sevatar. Sevatar, what do I think of you? I think you are gorgeous. I absolutely love this model. Very, very busy model, though. There are some parts, like the trophy rack on the left shoulder that looks like a ripped open Christmas turkey. Yeah, I probably would change that if I was picking the sculpt. The little pieces of skull where they're strapped onto the nacelles of the backpack, love that detail. The bits of flesh inside the cloak all looks great. The little Dark Angel's winglet works. It tells the setting of where this character is in the heresy. The armor is unmistakably power armor. Yeah, it looks more like a Mark 6 derivative based on the fact that it has no knees. But nothing makes it so ridiculously different to what's come before, like that new Sons of Horus Mark 3 Traitor Legion champion. Yeah, Sons of Horus Praetor. That nothing so different about this that makes it look like this is a completely different unseen mark of armor. Nothing like what's come before. No, it's not like that at all. This looks great, looks gorgeous. Bare head looks great, and I do really like that he has the most impressive helmet in the Night Lords, and it's really just the Night Raptors helmet with larger wings on it. Really all it is. And it is a gorgeous looking helmet. It has that angular aggression to the bone, and there's not much more I can say about it. I just love this model. The little bits of trim and their just wise use, again, hints at like Chaos Space Marines and the brass trim they'll have around their armor in the centuries to come. Love it. Wish more models were sculpted to this level of quality. Then we get to Konrad Curze. This is one of my least favourite Primarch models. Like the Contemptor, has these little blade winglets on the shins. So, I mean, at least they're aping him, but I don't really like those winglets at all. I think they detract from the model rather than improving it. Every edge of his armor doesn't need to be a weapon. It just becomes grim derp after a while. So, yeah, there's that. The flesh cloak and all that on the back's fine, looks good. I don't know how I feel about the sort of bat's wing motif coming over the power pack on the back. Fact is, he's meant to be some sort of jump infantry and has rules for it, and yet nothing on the armor represents that. So is it just he's preternaturally fast? Korax isn't, but this guy is. I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess Mortarion has rules like that, right? But little things like that never sat the best with me. I'm also not a fan of the cores, probably because I've snapped them off on my own Konrad Curze handling him before. But the 2 cores does nothing for me. I think no cores works better. Leave the cores to Korax and have the actual talons being in his fingers. There's something more animalistic, more brutal about that than the wrist blades. The wrist blades just, I don't know, it doesn't hurt the model having them, but there's no point to having them. It doesn't make him any more threatening or intimidating because he has those blades. I'd be more scared of him coring at your face with his bare fingers, or with his spiked gauntlet fingers, like a Freddy Krueger, than with those long wrist blades. Like, this guy ain't Wolverine, he's Freddy Krueger. And, yeah, I do really like the segmented bits of angular armor plate on the thighs. That looks great. Very rib-like, maybe Bram Stoker's Dracula, the armor that he wears at the start of that film. The Francis Ford Coppola film. Those are great. The the head, probably my least favourite Primarch head in all of 30k. Doesn't really, it looks like another Primarch's head, like Horus or maybe Lorgar's head, and someone just badly green stuffed it hair on to it. It just, I don't know, it doesn't look right to me. Sorry, it doesn't. Yeah, not the biggest fan of Konrad Curze. Definitely in the bottom end of Primarchs. They are all gorgeous sculpts though, like I say, and it doesn't mean he's a bad sculpt. There are just things I would change if I got to have my pick on this model. And now the bonus round. So this meme was a thing for a little while because this was the Mark 6 Space Wolf head that came out. And yeah, it was awful and people defended it, but then as soon as the replacement came out, they stopped defending it. So yeah, this was the original Mark 6 Space Wolf head that came out. It went out of production and we knew that, okay, it had been received so badly, they decided, let's not continue with this one completely identical head that we slapped a jewel on a couple of them. just the laziness in these sculpts. I'm sorry, that's what it is. And, we're here to talk about the quality of the miniatures when we do these videos, and I try to keep pretty neutral. These are lazy. And Forge World's gotten very, very lazy for what they charge for the quality of these miniatures, and it just needs to be said. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not, kowtow. Let's not hide when we talk about these things and just pretend that it's not a problem. It's a big problem. They're very lazy and they charge a lot of money. Now, that said, they have improved things because they brought out these heads. And these are far from gorgeous, but they're nice. And they're only going to get a nice rating because... okay. Same problem as before. There's 3 sculpts in here, basically. When it comes to the noses, they've got these little slits put into the helmets. Fine. Whatever, it's fine, it works. In fact, there might be 4 sculpts in this set, and the champion. That's neat that they actually put like claw mark styles in there instead of just having the traditional slits. That shows a bit of effort. And they've kind of got a bit of a Celtic knotwork going on, but frankly, if we go and we look at old Space Wolves, here's the Blood Claws over on Games Workshop's website. You'll see at the back there's one with a Mark 6 helmet. It's very hard to get good images of, so I got a couple off eBay. And you can see it's a Mark 6 helmet, but it's got runes. Runes on the sides of the beak, as well as the jewel in the center of the forehead and the sort of top knot, wolf's tail top knot. And here's the same helmet again. Not a great picture of it, because someone's had to zoom in super close to their phone, and it's dark and it's blurry and all those issues. But point being, there are many ways of skinning a cat, as they say. These work. They work infinitely better than these. horrible heads. That said, could they have been better? Yes. I think this is a common trend we see across all of these Mark 6 heads. Just pure laziness. And you can tell they didn't want to be Mark 6 heads, that the sculptors felt like they were being held back by having to sculpt Mark 6. Which, just sculpt Mark 3. It's clearly what you wanted to do. So just do it. You did it for, the Imperial Fist, no one cared. But to finish out the Legion Praetor. So the Space Wolves got their Terminator Praetor and all that back when the Prospero book dropped, Inferno, back in 2017. So they've been waiting a while to get a Praetor, and it's great to see a Praetor for the Legion that is not another one of these silly, what would I call it? Redo of an Imperial Fist. Haven't had something in 2 days. The players are probably feeling pretty let down. So what an improvement this model is. The fur it's not great, but it's far from terrible. Many of these fur pieces are just like long single noodles. It's not anywhere near as bad as the old banana fur. It's nowhere as good as something like Lehman Russ's fur, obviously. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. I also love that they did more of like that Sutton Hoo thing I was talking about with the helmet, where having the little rings of armor coming underneath the eyes instead of just doing a Wolfie McWolf helmet. Great, that's a good stylistic choice. The Celtic knotwork on the armor is, I don't know, it looks like it's trying to be wolf's heads on the chest. I think that's what they're getting at, but that doesn't really look like Celtic knotwork to me as a person of Scottish descent. I've seen a lot of Celtic knotwork, and that ain't it. It looks almost like it's semi-tribalistic, like Islander tribal, especially these ones on the belt buckle. Maybe even like North American, Native Americans. Yeah. But again, it's okay. It's not really hurting the model. They're just odd design choices. His bolt pistol, interestingly, kind of has a foresight, kind of doesn't. So maybe that ties it in with the Grey Slayers in the Legion. I love the shield. The 3 Wolf's Head shield looks great on the back of him, that combat shield. The arms still relatively convertible. They're not completely sandwiched under must-have cloak on the shoulders, so you can swap out the hands. Although the axe head is stupidly large and convoluted, it's probably one of the worst details about the miniature, and the stylized, I think, Imperial Aquila on the back, it's okay. But the biggest thing for me here is this is one of the few models where going pretty far from the standard Mark III works, because you know what this Legion is, how unique their styling is, the type of armor that is worn by their elite Terminators, by Leman Russ especially, and some of their elite troops have that segmented style of plate like he has on the legs here. It works. It doesn't make this model look like it's in a completely different type of armor. You can see a design lineage in there. And that's great to see. So overall, this is a massive, massive improvement, and I think we need to give Forge World at least a round of applause for two things here. For redoing the awful heads, and for giving someone who's not the Imperial Fist or Sons of Horus a miniature, and it actually suits the Legion and makes up for some of the past sins, because you actually have one of the best miniatures in the Space Wolf range. Again, it's still not a great miniature. It's not great. It's good. But that actually is enough to make it one of the best miniatures in their range, which is crazy to think about. Anyway, that's it for me. Make with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you on the next episode. Leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments below.